Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. One man's anonymous and live account of if he should get a divorce or stay married. He's been cheated on, and he's cheated. Protecting the innocent with changed voice patterns, the omission of names, ages, and genders. His authentic journey and account of the daily events of his marriage are helping him sort out his feelings and not get lost in the ups or the downs. New episodes are released daily. Welcome to the Divorce Diaries podcast. Entire seasons are released on Patreon weeks before anywhere else at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Link in description. Now for today's episode.
This is a very, very big realization. I'm talking to someone now. Is it serious? I don't really know. Do I need it to be serious? I'm torn. I want to say yes, I do need it to be serious, but not for the reasons that I think a divorcing person should need something to be serious. At least for me, for my wiring, there's a unchecked box when you don't have someone that you can call and attend a comedy show with. If you get an invite to a black tie event or a wedding and there's a +1, there's something missing from your life, for me anyway, as a man, when I don't have that person that I can call. And I'm unsettled. I hear someone say, yeah, I'm going to be getting married soon. And, I want you to come. And I'll send the invite and you can bring someone. It's like, I don't have someone for my +1. So my life is a little bit off balance. Even when I'm working really hard, like I'm working really hard on this podcast, and after my divorce is finalized, I plan on working really hard on a business that I'm going to launch. I need to have a relationship because I need to have that part of my life settled. What does a relationship mean to me right now? A girlfriend? Hell no. A wife? No. Not that either. Just a consistent person that I can communicate with when it's time for something to happen, a movie that I want to see, someone I want to sit across from at a dinner, I want to have interesting and intriguing conversation with that is of the female persuasion, and we are also having sex. So it was funny talking to the person that I'm talking to now. She kind of heard my description of what it is I'm looking for. And she's like, you want a girlfriend? I'm like, I don't want a girlfriend. It's just so interesting, the back and forth and the banter between us, because I'm like, I'm not looking for a girlfriend. Okay, well, do you want to see lots of other people while you're with this person? I'm like, not particularly. I may, but it would have to be the perfect scenario or something like that. But no, I'm just looking to see one person. I mean, my marriage has fallen apart, and I'm looking very much forward to my divorce because my wife and I, we were just on two different pages. I cared way more about her and our relationship than she did. And I mean that consistently from the beginning to the end, the amount of breakups initiated by her, me asking her, or her finally telling me some years ago, as I record this, we're about April 2022. And she told me this about 5 years ago, maybe 4. She says, geez, every time I came back to you and every time we got back together, she said, it was because you convinced me. And I'm like, oh, that's when I knew then that, yeah, this marriage is shit. And I still tried to sort of change her mind, so to speak, or just have more conversations with her, because I could feel that this is exactly why our marriage is absolute shit. I like you more than you like me. I love you more than you love me. I now understand it. And that's why things probably never progressed to a place where my wife and I were ever happy, because She said, hey, I never wanted to be with you. And the only reason I quote unquote came back, or the only reason that we got back together, is because you convinced me. I'm like, wow. It feels so different when you've got someone that wants to be with you versus someone that is convincing themselves to be with you. Trust me, I know, because the young lady that I'm talking to right now, she really wants to be with me. I mean, really hours-long conversations, wanting to hang out as often as I am able. Just come on over to my place, things like that. And it's just so interesting because I haven't felt that for a really, really long time. And I will say that I haven't felt it in this authentic way ever before. I am able to be myself. Yeah, I can kind of be a goofball. I make a lot of jokes, and I can be very inappropriate at times. I mean, for goodness sakes, I'm recording a podcast as I diary my divorce. It's so interesting. And feeling this genuine burning desire, as a lot of people in the manosphere might say. Rich Cooper, shout out to him. He will say, hey, and Rollo Tomasi, I think they both say it, but I think it's Rollo mostly, not Rich. But anyway, they're both great. She has to have genuine burning desire for you. And if she doesn't, you're not in a good long-term relationship. If there's not genuine burning desire. And this one, genuine burning desire. Genuine. So I'm just taking the time to sort of take inventory of that and understand that I'm not able to focus as much as I would like on parenting my child or starting my business or just anything in my life if that part isn't totally settled. Because let's face it, there's biology at the end of the day. I'm a man. I want to be having sex. I do. I want to be having sex as often as possible. But I'm really excited, turned on, aroused, you could say, by creating things. So I really want to create and scale my new business. I really want to excel at being a father and watching my youngest grow and develop into her new life and help her enjoy so many different experiences, restaurants, travel, just seeing the world, becoming cultured, having some dynamic nature to her. I just absolutely love that. And hey, I want to not think about, oh, here's a wedding invite. Let me call this person. Yep. Hey, you want to go Saturday? Oh, yeah, definitely. Or I'll just move something around. 100% I want that. And that settles my life. Just being in a relationship, it's weird. Because that's one thing I didn't count on missing. Because I don't miss my wife. I wish I'd never met her. I wish, and everything that comes along with that. I know that would be at the expense of my child that I love. And my children that I do love, the other children as well. The relationship is just different. There's just so much toxicity coming from them. And there's been so much manipulation from my wife with them, so many lies. And they're old enough to make choices. And they have made choices. They've chosen to hate me. And that's fine. But I'm not going to be able to try my best and continue to beat my head against the wall. I'll never shut my door to my children. And if they ever want to talk to me, I'm here. And I want you guys to know, if you ever hear it, I love you to death, and I always will. But walking over hot coals, let's say for 20 feet, I can do that. Let's say for 40 feet. Getting to my threshold. But you know what? I'll run 60 feet. I'm going to damn near launch myself and try to get over those hot coals as fast as I can. But if you say, you know what, but you've got to walk a mile, I'm like, I need you to meet me halfway at least. Can I walk around them? Well, if you walk around it, then, it won't be any points. And I'm like, I can't, because sometimes it's just too far. And thank God for my understanding of what I need and my acceptance. I can't listen to the folks that might say, you need to spend time alone and blah, blah, blah. Well, I have. In fact, I spent a lot of the final years of my marriage, and I would say probably the last decade of it, not in a good way, I don't, and I didn't like my wife for a very long time. I thought that I did, and I loved her for sure. I love her now. I love what she brought to my life, what she brought to our marriage. I love it, but that's a choice. There are a lot of things I hated that she brought to my life, but I love her. I love her as another human. I love her as the mother of my children. I hate that she's corrupted them. I hate that she sort of sentenced them to a life of hate and negativity, because I understand how that manifests in people. And once that seed is planted, it does grow. And I'm sure they will be so upset hearing this eventually, if they ever do, and hearing me consistently say, I love them to death. My door will never be closed. Yes, there will be a long road to repair, rebuilding, and healing, but I'll never turn my back on them. And they're kids. They're totally able to turn their backs on me. And I understand. I'm not upset. If I was told what they were told, I probably wouldn't talk to my dad either. But what's funny is I was told a lot of things about my father as well, but I was mature enough to understand that I was only hearing one side of the story. It wasn't until my father and I created our own sordid, tragic relationship full of love that I was able to have my own firsthand experiences with my father's toxicity. And then when he and I fell out, it had nothing to do with my mother, any other family members. It was just he and I. He and I, as men, we had a healthy falling out of a relationship. It was very clear on both sides, but my children, not really. There's a lot of cowardice there, manipulation, choosing to send emails but not make phone calls. And yeah, it's so interesting. The cowards. I love them, but the cowards that my children are. I didn't want this for them because life is hard. And I understand why they are cowards. And I'm not saying it from a point of contempt. Oh, my damn kids, they're cowards. No. I'm sad that they're cowards. I want my children to be people that are scared to do things because that's natural. They don't want to have certain conversations. That's natural. They avoid pain. That's natural. I want them to do all of those things. But I ultimately do want them to be able to say, but I need to make that phone call anyway. And it could take them years to do it. That's fine. Cowards are people that hide and never confront. And they also, cowards, talk about people behind their back. Cowards also make up lies. They lie, they betray, they're deceitful. They do all of these things behind some cover. Like when you envision a coward, you see someone standing behind another person, maybe a person that they don't need to stand behind. Like, let's say a grown man was with a woman and a child, and there was a threat, and the man got behind the woman, and because he was taller than her, like a average sized man is, and an average sized woman, he's taller than her, and he's sort of crouching himself down to make himself as small and diminutive as possible, and he's peeking around the woman's shoulder. Or a kidnapper or something like that may pick up a child and put them in front of them and using them as a human shield. That level of cowardice, you're hiding behind someone. And my unwavering holding of certain people accountable, and I'm not holding my children accountable like I did in the past. I'm no longer their parent. I am just the man that is their father. And I understand there's a two-way street. That's how my children are treating me. Hey, you're just my father, or you're my sperm donor, or whatever other horrible, hurtful thing they would say. And it's also very telling because my children want to say and make sure that I hurt. That has nothing to do with the fact that they're my children. I think we all have encountered those type of people that want you to hurt. Like my ex. She doesn't want me to see my children. Think about that. I'm trying to. I want to. They have lived with me. My son lived with me from birth to 19. My daughter lived with me into her 15th year of living. Or no, actually, no, 14 years. Yeah, because I moved out before she turned 15. My youngest, I moved out before she turned 9, and she is 9 now. And my wife doesn't want me. I mean, I'm coaching the sports teams. I'm taking kids to dance practices. I'm got my camera out. I'm cheering at recitals. I'm taking pictures. I'm learning how to whistle so I can whistle like a madman. I'm that parent. I'm that father. And my wife is the type of woman and mother and wife that does not want the father to have a relationship with his children. That is the woman. Let me let you guys know something that just happened recently. My oldest, my son, grown man, he's still on my cell phone plan. And I noticed over the past 2 months that there were 0 out of 0 gigabytes of data used on his line. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. We sort of had a little bit of a falling out last year. And he said by the end of the year, so which would be December 2021, I'll be off of your plan. I said, okay, cool. So when I looked at that, I said, oh, man, there hasn't been any data used on this line. And so I called my wireless provider and I said, hey, I just noticed, and I scrolled back a couple of months, and there doesn't seem to have been any gig usage on data or any talk or text history over the past couple of months. So that would have been February and March of 2022. And the woman over the phone, she says, oh, let me go back and see. Oh, the last activity of any kind on this line was in December of 2021. I said, that's right. He did say that he would be off my plan, but we're not speaking, so him not letting me know is not that much of a surprise. But here's why my wife is Mother and Person of the Year. I say, hey, just curious, did our son's phone number change? If it did, I'm sure he wouldn't want you to let me know, but I did just cancel it with our wireless provider. So if it did change, I would understand, but did it change? And she said, I'm not getting into this with you right now. I'm like, whoa, getting into this? Okay. And then I said, well, our youngest may want to reach out to her brother. So if she's sending texts to a number that's no longer active or maybe reassigned to someone else, should I let her know that his number's changed? Is it changed? She said, if our daughter wants to know what her brother's cell phone number is, she can reach out to me and I will let her know what his phone number is. I will let her know the number that I have. That's what she said. I will let her know the number that I have. I'm like, well, it's so funny. I'm thinking to myself, you just confirmed that his number is different. I told you that I looked at the cell phone records and he hasn't had any activity on his line for months now. So I'm understanding that his number has changed, but you're the type of person that knows his number's changed, is directly asked, did his number change? Not what it is, just did it change by his father, and you refuse to say, yes, it has, or no, it hasn't. That woman is the woman that raised my children. That woman she's walking around the world. You may meet her. You may find yourself in a relationship with this woman. Her wrapping paper is still nice. She's fairly attractive, so I'm sure she's going to find another man, and I'm sure she has a few already. She always has had men sort of on deck. She has. I'm just making these as statements of fact. So this woman with this level of toxicity is walking in the world, and she has children. There's no wonder my oldest only talks to her when he wants to use her, wants her to co-sign on a car or college semesters that he will drop out of. It's interesting. I don't know what my middle child will do and if she'll just start to use her, but they seem to be friends and they're both very toxic people at this point. I feel really bad for my middle child. And my youngest doesn't want anything to do with any of them because she understands the manipulation at this point. She's really hurt. And she's really upset, and I'm hoping to help her find a therapist, but totally stay out of that process to let her forge her own way in her own relationship with a therapist. And yeah, I'm hopeful for healing. But what I just told you, that doesn't have anything to do. I didn't say anything about my wife's infidelity. I just told you the type of person that my ex is. She won't even say whether my son's cell phone number is different or not. She could have protected his don't tell dad that I have a new number. I don't want him to have it. That's fine. But it's interesting that she wouldn't just say, yes, it's changed, and you know he doesn't want you to know it, so I'm not going to tell you. She's lording the fact that I've got information that you don't, lording it over my head. She's a lorder. Think of it. Think of all the things that person may do as a mom. Think of it. Think of all the things that dark person would do as a wife. Think of it. Think how far they could go. And my wife's gone pretty far. If you've been listening to this podcast, you understand. And just as a quick recap, do you remember I told you guys in another diary entry how when my wife was having her affair, she says, and I catch her and the guy together. She's like, but I didn't want to believe it because I was an idiot, totally naive. She says, she was like, do you, Kevin, that's his asshole's name, Kevin's willing to sit with you and tell you that nothing's going on with us. Are you open to doing that? And I'm like, something told me in my gut. I'm like, don't do that. But I'm like, you're telling me that there's a man in the world that wants to sit with me and talk to me and tell me that he and my wife are not sleeping together. And I know how my wife looks. My wife's an attractive woman. So if you guys aren't sleeping together, he definitely wants to sleep together. And why does he care what I think? If I were a man, one, I'm not going to be friends in that way with a married woman where she's getting into my vehicle and we're driving around and all this other stuff, because that is an affair. That is an affair. If you aren't having sex, being a married man and having a woman in your car and you're not going home and saying like, hey, I just want you to know, I took this person here, I took this person there. Yeah, it could be for work, but if you're like, yeah, we're just going out to lunch, but you don't divulge what you're doing from day to day with this person, oh, you're definitely having an affair or you want to. And just say, oh yeah, we went to Chick-fil-A today. Oh, who'd you go with? I went with Kevin. Okay, who's Kevin? Oh, he's just this guy from work. Okay. Well, how often do you guys do that? I mean, not often enough. I mean, sometimes. Quantify sometimes. In a 5-day week, how often do you go? I mean, almost every day, I guess. I mean, well, not every day. Okay, not every day. How often do you guys have lunch together? Oh, every day. Oh, were you just saying that you guys don't go to Chick-fil-A every day, but you go to different places? Yeah, I mean, we don't want the same thing. Oh, so you work with a guy, and think about it. Most people, 8-hour shift, right? So you, for the better part of 8 hours, you're spending restricted time together because you're in the office, but you're with the person, and unrestricted time where you don't have to restrain yourself in any way, and you're going out to restaurants together during lunch and extending those and couple-hour lunches and stuff like that, talking in the parking lot where I caught the two of them together. So interesting. And I'm glad I didn't sit down and pretty much cuckold and humiliate myself any further. That is the type of woman that would say, I'm not even going to acknowledge and tell you that your son has a new cell phone number. Does everyone see now why this person had to be divorced? And she served me, but whatever. I was absolutely done. And it took me a while with therapy to understand the narcissistic person that I had in my life, the narcissistic abuse that I suffered, how I had reactive abuse to her, how I was emotionally manipulated and lied to, all of those things. My wife is a horrible, horrible human being. I wish to God I never met her.
Wow. That was the Divorce Diaries podcast. The Daily Saga will continue tomorrow. The full season's episodes are on Patreon now. Subscribe for early access. Click the Patreon link in the description. Hopefully, these entries help our anonymous recorder as a form of his own personal therapy. That's his hope and his intention. Will these recordings of life's curveballs lead this family to the best resolution in the end? We'll keep listening. New episodes are released daily on all podcast players, but all episodes are available on Patreon at Divorce Diaries Podcast Patreon page. Until next time.